The FIA are useless.
Welcome back to This Week in Motoring, and what a week it has been. So let's start with the big talking points. Now, the big news this week was of course the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, with Perez and Verstappen bringing home another 1-2 respectively, and Alonso rounding off the podium in P3. And then he didn't. And then he did again.
Crikey.
Meaning he is now the 6th driver to reach 100 podiums. So what was the confusion all about? Well, during and after the race, the FIA made 2 monumental cock-ups. The first of these 2 cock-ups was pulling out the safety car when it was not needed. On lap 18, Stroll had to retire the car, and for once, it wasn't actually his fault. And on top of that, he actually managed to do so in a place that was off track, meaning they didn't actually need to bring out a safety car. However, they still did.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Why? Well, it's obvious, because the FIA is actually a mafia put in place by Christian Horner and Helmut Marko to help Max Verstappen in any way possible, is what Mercedes fans are saying all over Twitter, because they have a mental capacity of a 5-year-old. Moving away from the Mercedes breakdown, the safety car came out, and after starting 15th on the grid, Verstappen was now in 4th behind Russell, Alonso and Perez, and then on lap 25, he was only behind Perez, meaning once again we got a Red Bull 1-2 with Alonso taking the final spot on the podium, until the FIA had a bigger meltdown than Piers Morgan on live TV.
That's pathetic.
You can track him, maybe not my
No.
See you later.
I'm being...
Sorry, can't do this.
Absolute.
They gave Alonso a 10-second penalty because one of his mechanics touched the car before his 5-second penalty timer was up. He got the 5-second penalty for being slightly out of position on his grid box, just like Ocon the week prior. Now, this 10-second penalty dropped him down to P4 behind Russell, taking him off the podium, and the issue was that the incident happened on lap 19, and it took them until half an hour after the podium celebrations to decide it was a problem. This caused F1 fans on Twitter to go fucking ballistic. Why? Because it's obvious that the FIA was just a mafia put in place by Toto Wolff to make sure the Mercedes scraped as many points as possible with their diabolical car. However, after realising how much they had fucked up, they eventually gave the podium back to Alonso. And while everyone is saying that the FIA is a part of a mafia created by one team boss or another, I think the real reason the FIA fucked up so much is because they are more concerned about drivers riding their bikes or getting a cock ring rather than actually watching the race. But I digress. They eventually gave the podium back to Alonso and everything's right in the world. Wrong. Max Verstappen's dad was not happy that Perez won the race ahead of his son, and this is an issue for reasons I don't understand. This man is one of the worst people in the paddock every weekend, and has a history of irrational decisions when his son loses. However, the big thing people are focusing on is not his use of cutlery as a weapon, but the fact he didn't smile when Checo won. How is this a surprise to any of you? This is like being angry at the fact that Prince Andrew wasn't at his mum's birthday, rather than focusing on the fact he touches kids. You know, focus on the real issue. It doesn't matter he didn't smile. He stabbed his wife with a fork because he was a bit pissed. Come on!
This fucking fat old prick, mate. He's putting on pounds again as well, you know, fucking fat cunt.
Moving on from one set of cock-ups to another, as Ferrari have somehow managed to be 7/10 off the pace of last year's car. So, in 1 year, 2 team principals and 23 races, they have gone backwards. Yeah, just another day at Ferrari then. And the issues don't end there for the dying horses, as Leclerc's race engineer left him feeling a little underwhelmed after not letting him know Hamilton's position during the safety car. This meant he was behind Hamilton after the pit stops, and after hamstring past the wounded dog that is Carlos Sainz, Charlie Boy was stuck behind his teammate for the rest of the race.
And try to push from safety car line 1 for Hamilton. He just beat it.
Xavi, you need to tell me that before.
Copy.
No, but come on!
And moving away from dying animals to dying fruit, as the papaya men had another difficult weekend. Lando fucked himself into the wall in Q1, meaning he was starting from the back row. Piastri managed to drag the McLaren kicking and screaming into Q3 before getting wing damage on the first lap. Then the NOS addict followed suit, picking up wing damage a lap later, meaning they were both stuck at the back. Then after the safety car, they didn't improve and were losing drag races to Williams. Not that kind, Florida, calm down. Speaking of Williams, after their scrappy point in Bahrain, they managed to get a big lot of fuck all here with Alex Albon's brake failing, and after that he seemed to do something like a lap of honour, because he was by the pits, and instead of going into the pits, he stayed on the track to just do another lap. Well, I mean, I'll say quite slow, but to him it must have seemed pretty fast for the Williams. And it wasn't much better for the miserable Sargent, as he was stuck at the back fighting the orange tractors. So what does all this mean? Well, Red Bull are currently strolling the championship with there really being no hope of a contender, which has led to a lot of people on Twitter getting their cocks in a knot. But in reality, we have just been spoiled in the last 2 years with the illusion of competition. Last year, Red Bull were just as dominant, but they wouldn't have been if Ferrari were any good. And then obviously there was 2021, but we don't mention that in case we set off any Hamilton fans. But prior to that, Mercedes dominated 1-2 for 2 years, and then before that they won every title available since 2014. A dominant team is common in F1, and now the dominant team has switched, conversations are happening again, but eventually we'll all get used to it and get on with our miserable, pointless lives. The World Endurance Championship has resumed this week with the race at Sebring, with Toyota dominating the hypercar class, taking a 1-2 victory. And I'm starting to see a pattern here. Use a Japanese engine and you win. Unless you're Fernando Alonso in a McLaren. Anyway, Ferrari claimed the final spot on the podium, something they haven't done in F1 this season, while Toyota seems to be dominant. If the other cars can bring upgrades, we could be in for a very interesting season. Moving away from motorsport now and onto the streets of Bath, where a man has managed to wedge his car down an alley after fucking it into some fences. So, just a normal day in Bath then. The new Fiat 600 all-electric SUV has been spotted, which is good news for Fiat 500 girls with rich parents. A new Skoda Superb has been spotted, and shock, it's just as boring as the old one. The RAC have announced a new app which could let any car be a speed camera, and I would just like to let the inventor of this app know I fucking hate you with a passion. Rolls-Royce have announced a new limited edition Black Arrow, which will have the last of Rolls-Royce's legendary V12s under the bonnet, which is great news for all 5 people who can afford it. Pagani have released a one-off version of their Huayra, calling it the Dynamico Evo, which does look absolutely stunning. It also looks to have a 6-litre twin-turbo V12 Mercedes engine for power and will weigh just 1,250 kilograms, meaning it will be fast. So, to summarise this week, the FIA are a mafia that executed Massey for crimes against Hamilton, Ferrari is shit, Lando wants to jump in front of his McLaren tractor, and Fiat 500 girls could become more unbearable. See you next week.